Einstein started showing signs of being different from a very young age. When he was born, his head was way bigger than the kids his normal age. In fact, Einstein did not speak for the first 3 long years of his life. One day, when his parents and Einstein were having dinner at the dining table of their house, "The soup is too hot," Einstein says. His parents, very astonished, asked Einstein, "If you could, why hadn't you spoken before?" To that, Einstein replies by saying, "Because up to now, everything was in order." Hello everyone, my name is Adarsh and today we'll get to know about Einstein's entire life. Well, if not entire, most of it. And so to know more, watch the video till the end. Einstein was born on 14th of March 1879 in Ulm, Germany. He started going to this elementary school called Leopold Gymnasium. Now, a lot of us think that Einstein had flunked his subjects when he was young. A lot of us think he was a poor scoring kid. A lot of us think that Einstein, in fact, had flunked even mathematics. Well, these are just misconceptions. In fact, when Einstein read an article claiming that Einstein had flunked his mathematics exam in his younger days, to that Einstein had said that when I was 15, I had mastered differential and integral calculus. For those of you who don't know, these topics we study in 11th and 12th grade, and that too just the basics. And Einstein had mastered them. Well, all this being said, Einstein did have a lot of disabilities based on the doubts of his parents. And well, for reality, we also know that Einstein did have some speech challenges in his younger days, which he was able to overcome with time. Also, Einstein did not like to go to school. Einstein hated it as much as I do, and you do. A lot of us do, right? Einstein did not want to go to the school, not because of the academics though. He hated his school because of the mechanical and robotic methods that the school used to teach the subjects. Now, when his parents had to go to Italy, Einstein had to stay back in Germany to complete his education. So his parents and family shifted to Italy because of some business and family financial problems. So he stayed back, and when he turned 15, Einstein got this naughty idea of trying to escape school. He went to a doctor. Now, a lot of us who have read this beautiful story in our school days or whenever called Einstein at School, the story describes how Einstein tried to escape his school when he turned 15. He went to a doctor. He got a false report written by the doctor claiming nervous exhaustion. He thought of using that report to get some holidays leave from the school. Unfortunately for Einstein, he was kicked out of the school before he could even use that report to get the leave. Well, it happens. Einstein went to the University of Zurich for his higher studies. He could not clear the entrance examination to the university in his first try. He failed all the subjects except for the mathematics one. But on the second try, he was able to go through the entrance examination and study in the university. While Einstein was studying in the university, he did not have a good relationship with his professors. The reason being, Einstein had this tendency of not taking the lectures by his professors. Einstein preferred self-study. He really wanted time for himself, time for his own imagination, and that annoyed his professors. By the end of his graduation, by the end of his college, Einstein, when there was this time of getting the recommendation letter by the professors, he did not get a good recommendation letter, and that affected Einstein's career for the next 2 years. Einstein was struggling in those 2 years. First, he became a temporary teacher in some college. Then, he became a teacher in a private school. Later on, after those 2 years filled with challenges, Einstein started to work as a clerk in a patent office in Bern. Einstein, as a lot of you might already know, was able to write a lot of his own theories. He gave a lot of his time and burn to his theories in his research work. Some of you who might have actually read the story called The Beautiful Mind. Well, this book actually talks about how Einstein was able to take out free time from his work and give a lot of time to his theories in researching on them. And well, there's this interesting fact. Einstein called his desk on which he used to work the Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Einstein worked really hard in those years that he worked in the patent office in Bern. And in 1905, Einstein, which people would really love to call it the miracle year of Einstein's life, where he published 4 very revolutionary papers in the scientific world. First one being on photoelectric effect, second one being on Brownian motion, the third one being on the formula E equals to mc square, and the fourth one being on the special theory of relativity. Einstein became famous, really famous. He shook the scientific world. The reason being, he was just 26 years old, and the even more interesting thing was that he was not even a scientist, and he gave 4 revolutionary and very, very interesting concepts, theories in his life. After this 1905, Einstein started working on his general relativity theory, which was an attempt to, just give a basic, more general understanding of the entire universe. His theory, which he was able to, after a lot of effort for years and years, was able to give this, and was experimentally proven in 1919 during a solar eclipse. After this, in 1922, Einstein received a Nobel Prize. Well, the Nobel Prize that he received was not for the special theory of relativity or the general theory of relativity, but rather for something that he published in 1905, which was the photoelectric effect. Yep. Well, if you want to know why that was the case, why he did not receive the Nobel Prize for the other theories, there are a lot of controversial ideas, a lot of controversies, behind the scenes stories that you might want to look on through Google. Einstein started working on his other projects, other ideas. He was busy with his work, living in Germany at that point of time after receiving the Nobel Prize. Meanwhile, these things were happening in Germany, Nazi, which was led by Hitler. If you don't know about him, you need to wait for our next video. Beyond that, Einstein, when was living in Nazi Germany, felt that his freedom, his life was being just restricted by Hitler and his policies, and so Einstein decided to just leave Germany and just go and shift to US with his wife and assistant. Einstein married Mileva, with whom he had studied in the University of Zurich. Before marriage, they even had an illegitimate child named Liesl. She was a girl child, and there are a lot of theories of what actually happened to Liesl. There are theories which say that she died at a very early age because of some disease. And there are theories which actually say that she did survive, she was adopted by someone, and she lived a long life. Mileva and Einstein had 2 sons after their marriage. Einstein used to have a lot of affairs. Einstein even had an affair with his own cousin, Elsa. And because of all these factors, this affair and even a lot of other factors, the relationship, the marriage between Mileva and Einstein did not last very long. They had to give each other divorce. And from a divorce settlement, Einstein had to give a large sum of money, a part of that money that he won from the Nobel Prize, to Mileva and his 2 sons. Later on, in his later years, Einstein married his cousin Elsa, and they both lived with each other until Elsa died in Princeton when they were living in US. Einstein was a pacifist. A pacifist is someone who hates violence, who hates war. Einstein campaigned against war. Einstein even in fact signed a manifesto declaring his ideologies. Besides that, well, there are controversies, there are, well, evidences that say that Einstein had racist views on the people from other countries, some of the countries, from his travel diaries. Well, I guess people change with life, with time, because we know for a fact that Einstein in his later years was campaigning against racism, was campaigning for civil rights. I guess Einstein did change because his rights and his views, the way he thought of the people, it changed. Einstein wrote a letter to the then President of United States, Franklin Roosevelt, alerting him of the possibility of Nazis, Hitler, being able to successfully develop this nuclear weapon which would terrorize the entire world. He was scared of the possibility of Nazis being the sole power in the entire world having such a dangerous weapon. He wanted United States to work on their own nuclear power too. United States started investing in nuclear weapons. They started this project called Manhattan Project, which was aimed at developing their own nuclear weapon. Einstein, interestingly, was not part of this project. The reason being, there are a lot of theories, well, one of them being Einstein had already made it very clear that he hated war. He had already publicly announced his pacifist ideologies. And more than that, the very more interesting thing to this story is that Einstein was suspected to be a spy. And so Einstein was not part of this project directly. But when Einstein got to know about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, he was very sad. He was regretting his action to write to Roosevelt. And Einstein regretted it because Nazis were unsuccessful in developing their own weapon, whereas United States successfully developed the weapon. Einstein, because of all these things that happened, well, he thought it was because of him, he started campaigning against war. He started to just campaign for his pacifist ideologies. He started to campaign for a unified government. He wanted to spread this ideology. He wanted to spread this message of a government that would ensure that no war, no nuclear war especially, was permitted in the world. In later years, Einstein was working on the unified field theory. Also, very interestingly, Einstein was working on the key aspects of his general theory of relativity, such as time travel, wormholes, black holes, and even the origins of the universe. Einstein died at the age of 76 in 1955. The cause of his death was enlargement of the aorta, the main blood vessel that carries your blood from the heart to the entire body.